Yesterday is a day that will undoubtedly go down in history because it was the 26th of July 2023 and there was a House Oversight Subcommittee hearing in the United States of America all about UAPs. The witnesses there were Ryan Graves, David Grusch and David Fravor, all military or ex-military people talking about their experiences with UAPs or UFOs if you prefer. So join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we give you this very, very special episode discussing that very hearing.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a skeptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly or sometimes extraordinary episode of your weekly look at your... I'm getting this all wrong because we're not. It's not our weekly podcast. This is a special one because we not only look at the mysterious skies and smoke-filled back rooms and undersea and whatever. We also look into congressional hearings and acts of government, which is what we're going to look at today. My name is Neil Kelly. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm your other host, Stu Jackson. Now, for this week, we're going to depart with the usual sort of bonhomie and chat. We're going to get straight into it.
No time for niceties today.
Not today, no, because... so yesterday was the hearing. It was... I mean, just the hearing to end all hearings, pretty much. It was the House Oversight Subcommittee in the United States of America had a hearing with David Grusch, of course, who has been in the media a lot recently with his whistleblowing on UFO black projects, basically. And also with him as witnesses, there was Ryan Graves, who we have talked about previously in episode 49. He was someone who basically came forward when the Pentagon released their now famous videos. You know, the
Tic Tacs,
and Go Fast, and those. He was kind of like the front man. That's how I see him.
Yeah, he was the pilot who said, I was the one who saw these things. Was it actually his camera that recorded it?
In the case of, I think it was the tumbling one. I believe so, yes. But the other person, interestingly, so Tic Tac, you're absolutely right, was also released at the time, and the other witness was David Fravor. Who retired pilot, who was the pilot who captured the video footage of the Tic Tac.
Okay, right.
So that's who was there. The committee themselves were made up. It was a bipartisan hearing. And I was really impressed. With one exception, I was really impressed how non-political the the committee seemed to be. The one exception I'm going to mention is Ms. Fox, who she asked David Grusch a question. Grusch. We've been calling him David Grusch. It's not. I was corrected by our listener Israel on this. It's David Grusch.
Okay.
And so she asked him a question. He started answering it. She cut him off, and then proceeded for the rest of her time to just talk about political bollocks, basically. So I was unimpressed with her. But the rest of the committee, what did you think on that aspect, on the bipartisan element of it, Neil?
Yeah, there wasn't. I didn't see much evidence of politicking, of trying to gain party political points in that. Yeah, there were some notable figures on the panel. I was impressed by. I think I was more impressed by the two pilots in their evidence than in David Grusch.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, the pilots seemed to be more matter of fact in what they had seen and their assessment of it. David Grusch seemed eager to convince, and also a lot of his information was second-hand. He'd heard it from someone else.
His information was second-hand, but ever since his Newsnight interview, that's not news that it's second-hand. But the stuff he had to oversee and the stuff that he has witnessed sort of second-hand is basically what brought him forward to say, like, you guys, they're basically, from what he said, and he was very clear about this, they're diverting funds. That misappropriation of funds was talked about.
Now, he kept refusing to answer on the grounds that he would be in breach of an NDA or in breach of what the American equivalent of the Official Secrets Act is, that he would go to jail for saying this.
Yes.
He said he could present information in what was called a skiff.
Yes.
Do you know what that is? What that stands for? I assume it's a
SCIF. I know it's an acronym.
Yeah.
It is basically a closed hearing. It's one where people of a certain security level can have. I forget what the acronym is for, so forgive me for that. But essentially, it's a closed hearing. But here's the interesting thing: Congress has been refused that.
Well, that's something that can happen when national security is deemed to be at stake. I know that national security is often slammed down as anything that might be inconvenient. Can suddenly be a matter of national security. But if you pass someone information in a skiff, that means someone who has access to classified information can presumably only pass that information to someone authorised to receive it, and then, of course, they can't pass it on, so that it stays in that closed arena. We will not hear whatever he said he could not impart at that hearing. We're never going to hear.
No, I mean, it's interesting you've raised this as a point about David Grusch, because I've been incredibly impressed. He is doing this by the book, to the letter. This is my perception, my take on this. He is absolutely doing this within the rules. Everything he has said publicly has been declassified, and he's got the clearance to say it, basically.
He's been very careful, and he was quoting chapter and verse of the rules and regulations in his answers. So he had it all there in front of him. The pilots just had what they had seen. They
had their personal experiences to go on. Absolutely, but he delivered what he delivered, David Grusch. I felt he delivered confidently. I don't think he was trying to convince anyone. I think he was just, look, this is what's happening. No, I can't share the classified stuff, But this is what is happening. Worth bearing in mind as well that David Grusch is still a serving officer, and that will tie his hands quite a lot.
But it strikes me as odd that someone who's in the military, an officer, would feel the need to blow the whistle about funds being directed towards secret military projects. I mean, secret military projects is what the military does. And they do lots of stuff that can't be made public. And I also wondered whether this hearing had been provoked by the outcry of the balloon. And here's where it got political about about the Biden administration's handling of the balloon case. That it entered US airspace apparently over Alaska. They didn't pick it up until it was over Montana. And then they let it continue its journey all the way across the continental United States until I think it was off the coast of South Carolina that it was shot down. And the reason given for that was that they didn't want debris falling possibly on populated areas. So they would let it continue its journey all the way. And if it's gathering information and broadcasting it back or narrowcasting it back to someone in China, well then, yeah, the damage is done. It's achieved its mission.
Well,
It was always going to be. Yeah, what they're going to wait for it to circumnavigate the globe and get back to China and then land? No, I don't think that's. It was a disposable craft anyway, wasn't it?
It was very much so.
But that's what I thought prompted these hearings. That this great lapse in allowing this initial UFO, but turns out to be what the American military are more concerned about. It seemingly when they hear reports of an unidentified flying object or aerial phenomenon, that it's something from a hostile terrestrial power, and that they're falling down on their defence. They're allowing an enemy aircraft into their airspace to encroach.
So I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying, that the case with the Chinese balloon was a factor that led towards this. But I think there have been so many different factors that have led us to this point, and I think a lot of it starts with the release of the videos back in 2017 from the Pentagon. That's where it starts. That then opens the door for serious discussions, and it was mentioned a few times in the hearing that 10, 20 years ago, people in the witnesses' position would have been absolutely ridiculed just for having the conversation, and that still to this day there are commercial and military pilots who are too afraid to talk about their experiences because they'll be out of a career.
One of the witnesses, I'm not sure if it was David Grusch or one of the others, said that they estimated that something like, they said that if you see something that's in the sky and you value your career, don't tell anyone about it. And they reckon for that reason only something like 5% of sightings are spotted. But of course you can't really know that if they're not reporting it.
Well, they will talk about it amongst themselves. And whilst it was absolutely an estimate, I wouldn't be surprised if that's about right. 1 in 20? Yeah. Definitely. But I think that was Ryan Graves. I'm working off memory.
The idea that defence contractors are milking the military establishment and milking the Pentagon, that's something that's always happened. I mean, I remember, I think it was in the aftermath of the Challenger disaster, that there was they were looking into how much it had cost, and they did discover things like the $500 spanner and the $10,000 toilet seat and all these, all very special but specially made, but eye-watering prices for things that are seemingly mundane. And
that was the thing you said just before the Chinese balloon, and sorry, I was going to address that. I forgot. Yeah, so you were surprised that David Grusch has come forward and whistleblown, and part of it is about this reallocation of funds, shall we say?
No, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that an Air Force officer has found it strange that funds have been diverted to secret projects. That's what the military does. You know,
Excuse me.
I mean, America spends more than. Yeah, it's the highest military spender in the world. The next more than the next three all put together, whichever they are. Yeah, but they have to spend that money to stay technologically ahead, and their great fear on seeing something in their airspace that seems to outperform anything that their craft can do, that defies the laws of known physics, that performs in a way that they don't think a human pilot would be able to survive. They wouldn't be able to survive the G-forces, those sudden changes of direction, those sudden accelerations. Their first concern is always that a terrestrial military competitor has somehow leapfrogged them in technology.
Yeah. Well, okay. So bringing it back onto this point about you're saying he's surprised. I didn't get that he was surprised this is happening, but let's not forget it is illegal. And again, this was something that came out during the hearing. You know, he took an oath when he signed up for the military. And that oath is important to him. And it is, you know, I don't know the specific wording of the oath, but, you know, it is to protect the public, to look after the public's interest, to adhere to the law. And this misappropriation of funds is illegal. There's no two ways about it. And he'd obviously deemed it's not in the public interest for it to be happening. And I'm 100% behind him on that. But I never got that he was surprised it's happening. I think, we all know it's been happening. I would take issue with both aspects of that. For one, is it an illegal misappropriation of funds to spend money on secret projects? Yes.
And claim that actually the money has gone somewhere else, that you're kind of cooking the books?
Yes.
But that's how you keep things secret. You don't let... You know, you've got this vast amount of money. You have to show it's gone somewhere. Because probably access to your accounts is less less protected than access to your secret military projects. You have to be able to account for the money, so you have to kind of make up a lie about what you've actually spent it on, or misdescribe what you spent it on. And also, I would have thought examining things, spending money on developing technology, or exploring technology, or exploring intrusions into your airspace is perfectly legitimate expense as far as the Air Force and air defence sector is concerned.
It sounds to me, and forgive me if I've misunderstood this, but it sounds to me like you have just completely contradicted yourself there. Because on the one hand, if it's perfectly reasonable, and I agree, it is perfectly reasonable to have projects, classified projects that the public doesn't have access to, that funds are put into, exploring these things. Absolutely. I'm 100%. But to say, well, it's going for this thing, but then, you know, a spanner doesn't cost $500, so, you know, $495 goes to this other thing that, bear in mind, Congress, and from the sounds of this hearing all the way up to the president, doesn't even know about. Yes, that is absolutely illegal. That is a criminal offence.
What, to have a secret project that politicians don't know about?
Yeah, because the military answers to the politicians, not the other way round. It's not a dictatorship.
No, but some things have to be kept secret, don't they? I mean, there are levels of classification, and not everyone is cleared to receive that. I mean, certain politicians will be cleared to receive that information. Certain, you know, the Department of someone who's responsible for the Department of Defence or Department of NASA or the Air Force. Yeah. But not generally. Not absolutely generally.
But you've hit the nail on the head. You have degrees of classification. So what you do is, if you're having a project like that, the correct way to do it, the moral way to do it, the legal way to do it is, yes, you still have these projects. You just classify it really high.
Yeah.
That way you don't need to misappropriate funds.
And the best way to keep a secret is something called steganography. Is the first thing you do, I mean, this regards to secret messages, is that you hide the communication totally. If you send someone a coded message, that can get intercepted, and they might not be able to decode it, but they know that you've sent a coded message. For instance, suppose someone who was a known paedophile sent you a very large encrypted file. The people monitoring that paedophile's connections don't need to know that you're a paedophile. You're suddenly of interest. They don't need to be able to decode that file. They know that the very fact that you've received this large file puts you in the network.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is hide the communication itself. The best way to lose a secret or to have it discovered is to let people know you've got a secret.
I agree with you. But that doesn't stop misappropriation of funds being illegal.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it is misappropriation of funds. I mean,
if they say it's for this one thing when it's for something else, that is misappropriation. Yes. No two ways about that.
I think there are two ways about that. I think in some cases you have to hide what money is being spent on something. Otherwise, you're giving it away. You're giving this. Oh yes. Oh, by the way, this 500 billion is being spent on this secret project that you're not allowed to know about. Oh, right, there's a secret project I'm not allowed to know about. Is that right? Okay.
In terms of sort of declaring to the public what money is being spent on, you wouldn't say here's $500 billion on this one secret, but you'd lump it in with the other secret projects, and you'd say there's 100 billion being spent on a variety of secret projects. You wouldn't, so that way you don't know if, like, they're shoving $10 just for someone to go through UFO reports, or they might be spending like 90 billion on it. You don't know.
But
so
I don't think
that keeps it secret in that way.
I'm not sure it's illegal in the way, for instance, Iran Contragate with Colonel Ollie North, who was basically secretly selling weapons to Iran to raise funds for the Contras in Nicaragua. Because they didn't have an actual budget for it. They had to find it somewhere else, so they engaged in illegal activity to raise the money. Selling weapons to an enemy, fighting a war against a supposed ally. Saddam Hussein at the time was an ally. I can see how that's very, very dodgy. But it's a murky world. As soon as you get into the world of state secrets and espionage, it is a murky world. And for someone to go out and blow the whistle and say, well, actually, they said they were spending it on this, but actually it was spent on this secret project. I think that's I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that something horrible has happened to David Grusch.
That was an interesting. So moving on a little bit, but you've just segued perfectly into another. Really, for me, it was a shocking moment when he talked about the campaign that's been launched against him, and when one of the committee asked him, has your life been threatened because of this? And he instantly went to his, can't talk about that because it's classified. Like, if the answer's no, that would, all right, we can't assume that that's an answer because, he's not given an answer, but also, that's really damning. Really damning, I thought.
What, that he wouldn't answer whether his life has been threatened?
Yeah, because if it hadn't, that's an easy question to answer.
Yeah, but if it hadn't and he wanted to make it appear that he had, then it's also his words. Sorry, I can't tell you that.
Do you know what?
And you draw your own conclusions.
I accept that. I accept that as a response. But the fact he's had this campaign against him as well. And Ryan Graves said the same thing. It was interesting that David Fravor everyone's been really nice to me about it all. That was quite interesting. But then David Fravor hasn't been standing up and talking about this in the way that both Ryan Graves and David Grusch have been pushing for disclosure. Basically, they've been campaigning for more visibility. And for, they're asking for simple things. We want a proper reporting process. That's a reasonable thing to ask for, surely.
Yeah. You would think, wouldn't you? But
to be a
people will
sensible
find
thing
a
to
reason
ask
why not.
for.
Yeah, and I mean, I know David Grusch has been very careful about what he's told people, that he's not told them anything that hasn't been declassified. But I know from my own experience in the military, when I've been jumped through all the hoops to read a classified document, that I have to get into the building, get past several guards, get written permission, show certain passes, till I get to a locked room and the security officer hands me the document and breathes down my neck while I read it, and then you read it and you think, well, there's nothing in here I didn't know. But quite often what can happen is say, okay, well, this piece of information isn't classified, this piece of information isn't classified, and this piece of information isn't classified. However, if you make a connection if you show how these three things are connected, that's actually highly classified.
Yeah.
And I think he's in danger of doing that. That's always a risk, that someone can say, the fact you've made this, if he makes any kind of conjectural leap or comes to any conclusion based on this declassified information, he might actually be saying something very highly classified. I hope I'm not giving anyone ideas who might be listening in our podcast how to go after David Grusch. I'm sure he's a very courageous man. He's certainly got a morality to him. He's got a sense of what's right and what's wrong. He understands that although he is in the military, he is serving a democracy. What was it Gene Hackman once said in that film when he was a submarine commander? He said, "We're here to defend democracy, not practice it." On the submarine, I'm in charge. There's no discussion about what we want to do. There's no vote on it. I'm the captain. But yeah, towards defending a democracy, which is, it's an uncomfortable fit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You
use the word courageous with him. I 100% am in agreement with that, because what he's doing is career-ending stuff. At no point, even if, let's say, down the road, a year down the road, he is proven to be completely vilified in everything he's saying, his career is still over.
Yeah, and why would you do that? Because you invest a lot in a military career
for what he believes is right.
For quite a reward. If you survive combat and get to retirement age, which is quite a young retirement age, you can retire. Enlisted men can retire on a pension at 40 years of age. Officers older, but which means they can stay in the military longer and rise up the ranks higher and get. That's why military officers in this country live in big mansions and own country estates and what have you, and polo ponies and all that kind of thing. Yeah, they are the members of the established upper classes.
Yeah.
To throw all that away over some reporting of something or some funds that you think, going public about something is a really dangerous thing to do.
It is. I mean, the funds thing, just to be clarifying that was one very, very small aspect of this hearing. He's and this was my overwhelming sense with the whole thing, is it was absolutely clear throughout there, and I completely agree with what you say. I think I'm starting to move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
But before I do, yes, absolutely 100%. Everything you say there, I wholeheartedly agree with. And the same for the other two witnesses as well. Incredibly courageous people who are doing this because it is the right thing to do, not because it's the easy thing to do, because it definitely ain't that. Definitely ain't that. But yeah, the overwhelming. So we've discussed sort of the misappropriation of funds a little bit, but overwhelmingly, I felt watching the hearing, it's absolutely clear from what they're saying, these UAPs are all over the place, all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what they're there, where they are, where they come from. Well, no, somebody knows what they are from what David Grusch said. When he talked about, craft have been retrieved. Non-human biological entities have been retrieved with them.
But he hasn't seen them himself, so...
No, but he's seen the evidence.
He's seen evidence of it, but
yes.
I sort of thought the compelling evidence would be to actually see the thing itself.
But the people who have the evidence, they're not the people coming forward.
No.
Because they're the people who are operating, and this is kind of the point. People like the military and these projects, they're supposed to report to Congress. They're not supposed to work above it, and that's what's happening at the moment. It's really, it paints a very dark picture of what's going on behind the scenes in what is supposed to be a democracy.
Well, it raises all sorts of questions for me. I mean, are these things only appearing over the continental United States, or is it mainly the United States that has the capability of spotting them and tracking them, whereas if they appeared over Africa, for instance, no one's any the wiser? Is it just America, and if so, why? And if the ETs decided they wanted to go public, they wanted humanity to know, we're here and we're going to rough you up a bit if you don't sort your ideas out, or whatever their message is, they can do it. They don't need to go through channels.
Absolutely, they don't. So two interesting points you've raised there, to address them in turn. So the first one, there was a question put to Ryan Graves, because he kept talking about on the eastern seaboard, and they said and the question was, is it just the eastern seaboard? And he's like, oh no, it's wherever we've got operations going on. Or words to that effect, which says to me, well, no, it's happening wherever there is the facility to detect it, they're finding it.
Or is it, to put the boot on the other foot, that if these are ETs, it's not that they just happen to be so ubiquitous that wherever they have an exercise, they'll spot them, they'll just come across them, that actually maybe those ETs are there because there's a military activity going on and they're there to observe it, and they're not somewhere else. They know where to be.
As for if they wanted to take action against us, it wouldn't be difficult. Then David Fravor actually addressed that one a little bit. When he was out, did you at all feel threatened? It was absolutely not. The way these things were operating, the way the technical manoeuvres that they, if they wanted to, and all of them answered the same question the same way when asked, could you defend yourself against these? Or nope. Which
but that's making a bit of a leap. That's an assumption. We say, okay, we've seen something which, if it's moving like that, it's obviously way more technically advanced than anything we've got. It's faster, more manoeuvrable. It doesn't seem to have any visible means of propulsion. We can't make that, but they're kind of assuming, I suppose, judging by their own standards, that these things are also armed, that they're capable of destroying anyone they decide to destroy, but maybe they're not.
No, David
our
Fravor
spacecraft aren't generally armed.
David Fravor was saying he didn't feel threatened at all, so he got no impression of armaments or threatening behaviour or anything like that. So it's not they're not assuming that they're armed, but the question was, if these things were to attack, could you defend against them? And of course, a lot of defence is in manoeuvrability and speed and things like that. Well, if
it's that, but it's also having some kind of weapon, and it's not about the
question's put to you. If I say to you, if someone in the street comes up and threatens your life, instantly the image in your head is that person is armed. So that hypothetical question, absolutely, I think it's perfectly reasonable.
What I'm getting at is that military aircraft know when they're being tracked by radar, and radar carries with it a signal so that they know whether it's friendly or hostile radar. They know whether it's their own defences or someone else's air defences. It carries this special encoded signal, and if it's someone else's, the plane will automatically arm and launch a missile at the source of that radar. It happens almost without. It's nearly happened a few times on exercises here.
Yes.
A couple of police officers nearly got wiped out because of their radar gun.
I remember you saying yes, but
you know, if someone else has got advanced technology, they could track a plane in a way that they wouldn't know. But as far as they're concerned, they weren't being tracked. There was no weapons system heating up, ready to go for them. As far as they're concerned, it was this. They could just see this thing was benign, but that what they could tell was they wouldn't be able to shoot it down.
You're saying
the thing might be able to shoot them down if it had a weapon, but they don't know.
But no, absolutely, and I never got the impression from the question or the answers that they could. What I'm saying to you is that I'm agreeing, and they're agreeing with your point that if these UAPs wanted to wipe us out, they wouldn't have to. Yeah, it wouldn't be difficult for them. But
what they didn't say, what I thought they said was that I saw no indication that this UAP was carrying any kind of weapons system.
Yes, that was said.
That I would have recognised, or that my aircraft sensors would have recognised as a weapon.
Yes, but they also had no means of propulsion that they were able to recognise, or their equipment was able to recognise.
Yeah, presumably they can fire a missile that also has no visible means of propulsion.
Yeah, it's a reasonable. I wouldn't say assumption to make, but it's a reasonable thing to be aware of. The potential for that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, and again, just to be clear, so you mentioned about extraterrestrials a little while ago, and David Grusch was very, very particularly specific about that. He kept saying non-human, and in fact, one of the committee did ask him, why do you keep saying non-human rather than fall into the vernacular like extraterrestrial? And he said, because we don't know. Because, you need to keep an open mind about it. We don't have the answer. We don't know. There are all sorts. Also interesting to know, I wasn't aware of this, or if I was aware of it, I'd forgotten. David Grusch has a degree in physics.
Yeah, he said.
That was impressive to hear. So, overall, so let's not draw this out too long. I think overall overriding impression, Neil, of the hearing, what's your takeaway from it?
I almost felt like the discussion of extraterrestrial or non-human vehicles was a sidebar almost, that what the hearing was about something they could do something about, which is proper accounting for funds, proper accounting for military budgets. That was my main takeaway. That's the thing they're going to act on as a result of all this. That's my takeaway from it.
I can sort of see what you said there. I think for me it was less about the funds and more about the response to it. By saying, oh, no, it doesn't happen, when it's very clearly happening, that puts lives at risk. That creates a danger, not just, obviously, with commercial flights, with military manoeuvres, things like that. So I think they're saying, look, these things are very clearly here. They're very clearly real, and we need very simply to acknowledge it, because then we can start mitigating, investigating, but do it properly. So I sort of see where you're coming from there, but I got a different take from the same thing. But for me, the biggest overriding thing of all is the fact that this hearing happened. And that it was taken seriously, because as a subject, so as we know, so I started getting involved in ufology through an interest in crop circles. I actually don't think there's a connection between the two, but that's a whole other discussion. But you can't look at crop circles without ufology cropping up repeatedly.
No, because you might not think there's a connection, but an awful lot of people do.
A lot of people do, and there might be, but I just don't think we know. Is the answer?
And that's the thing, we don't know. Although I didn't hear any disagreement throughout the course of that hearing, there was no one saying, "Well, if there's such a thing." They all seem to take as read that these things have been spotted. A kind of UFO that have we talked about the grey or black cube within a transparent sphere?
We haven't. Which came up a lot. A really interesting UFO type. We've talked about orbs. We've talked about spherical UFOs. Definitely. So, yeah, that's something that we might revisit that in a future episode. I think that's a worthy topic in of itself. Definitely.
I'll make a note.
But what I'm saying is so for over 20 years I've been kind of at the very least on the edges of ufology, and 20 years ago the idea of a hearing in Congress where UAPs are discussed openly, 20 years ago, that would have just been absolutely incredible. And I won't be surprised if far more people, if we start to get ex-military and commercial pilots coming forward now, coming basically out of the closet, so to speak, and talking about their experiences. I can see in the next year or so an absolute flood of people talking far more openly about what they've experienced because of this hearing. Because it's legitimised UAPs.
I still think the hearing was about funding and misappropriation of, and was also occasioned by the embarrassment over the Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah, those were definitely aspects. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll ask our listeners to let us know what they think. What do you reckon, Neil?
No, I think that's probably the best idea, because I don't know.
Definitely.
I'm just shooting the shit here. No, I don't know what I'm talking about.
No. I mean, interestingly, I was talking with one of our listeners yesterday, just after the hearing happened, who is a self-professed skeptic, and I asked him the question. I'm not going to name names for obvious reasons, but I asked the question, well, given that we've had, like, in 2017 these videos, the Tic Tac, the Go Fast, all the rest of it, given that the Pentagon have basically said very publicly UAPs exist, how can one remain a skeptic? And he qualified it by saying, well, it's not. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So for this particular listener, forgive me for paraphrasing, but I'm going to anyway. But yeah, he said that it's not skepticism over whether or not UAPs exist, but it's skepticism over whether or not they are extraterrestrial. It's skepticism over whether or not they're even artificial. It could be a natural phenomenon that's going on. And until we know, at the moment, we just don't know. And I get that. To me, that's not skepticism, because it acknowledges the existence of UAPs. That, to me, is what skepticism's about. But skepticism as a phrase, it seems to be evolving.
But I also think that with the more we accept, the more we're watering down actually what it is we're accepting. We've gone from flying saucers with little green men to, okay, we're going to call it a UFO. It's just an unidentified flying object. Might be a flying saucer, but we don't know. We're not saying it's a flying saucer. We're saying it's something up there and we don't know what it is. And we've moved from that to calling it, actually, we're not going to say UFO, we're going to say UAP, an unidentified aerial phenomenon, because it might not be an object. It could be a trick of the light. It could be some kind of,
unidentified
whatever.
Anomalous phenomenon.
Yeah.
be very
Anomalous
specific.
phenomenon. We're not even saying it is a thing. We're saying, there's stuff up there. You see things in the sky, and we don't know what they are.
We're removing the speculation aspect from it. We're removing, is it flying? Well, no, it might not be flying, so we're removing that speculative aspect. Is it an object even? No, that's speculation, so we're removing that until we actually know what we're dealing with. I'm all on board for that. Anyway,
I just feel like we're getting vaguer about what we're sure about. If you get my drift.
Yeah, it's important to know what you don't know. There's probably some ancient wisdom phrase about knowing what you don't. Oh, that's it. The start of wisdom is to know that you know nothing. Yeah, and that's where we are. We know nothing about these, and that is a really important thing to acknowledge. But we were asking our listeners to tell us what they think, not what they know, because we all know nothing. But no, I mean, if you do know something, listeners, do tell us that as well. But let us know what you believe, what you speculate, what was your
what you
take?
what you know that you're not supposed to know.
Absolutely, we definitely want to hear that. But tell us your take on the hearing. What was your takeaway from it? What was your highlight from the hearing? What could have been better? Should the hearing have happened in the first place? All that stuff we definitely want to know about. You can email us, of course, aliensexplored@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. So you can find all of those. And in fact, to our YouTube viewers, I apologise. I've realised after we started recording, my T-shirt's quite dusty, so apologies for looking scruffy on camera.
It doesn't show. I'm afraid my Aliens Explored T-shirt is in the wash, so I didn't.
There you go.
I didn't dress for the occasion.
But yes, do let us know what you think. We'll be back with our regular scheduling on Friday. That's tomorrow. So yeah, we've got whatever episode it is coming out tomorrow. Oh, our 3-year anniversary episode tomorrow. So don't miss that one. In the meantime, keep watching these congressional hearings, and of course, keep watching the skies. Take care for now.
Catch you next time. Bye bye.